Welcome to the Snap UK podcast, your one-stop shop for all the news, views and opinions you need on the NFL. I am Griff, and for one night only, I am the Commissioner. Boo! I think we have professional the Olympics. Of course. This week's show is our yearly fave, the Snap UK Draft Day. Each of my co-hosts, John, Jim, Gary and Paul, have been handed control of a number of franchises for the day, and they will simulate the first round of the draft ahead of Thursday night's real thing. Will we see the next Jamar Chase selected, or is it possible that Paul takes a swing at the next Will Greer?
Hello.
Let me properly introduce tonight's GMs. Gentlemen, please state your name and the teams for your picks with tonight's charade. Starting with you, John.
Hi, I'm John. I'm
38.
I'm
single,
38.
Live
Single.
with his parents. No cats.
I'm at least not the second biggest cunt here. I have the Jags at 1, the Giants at 5 and 7, Seahawks at 9, the Saints at 17 and 19, the Cowboys at 24, and the Bucks at 27.
Okay, next up.
So hi, I'm Gary. Lions. I have the Lions with the 2nd and 32nd pick. The Vikings with the 12th pick. The Chargers with the 17th pick. The Patriots, boo, with the 21st pick. They're going to pick something shit. The Bills, 25th. The Chiefs that have the 29th and 30th picks. 4 inches.
Oh no, it's me next, is it? All right, I'm Jim. I've got the Texans with the 3rd and 13th pick, the Falcons with the 8th pick, the Commanders with the 11th pick, the Eagles with the 15th and 18th pick, the Packers with the 22nd and 28th pick. I've also got non-first round teams in the Broncos and Raiders, which aren't going to be doing anything.
Yeah, I was going to mention those once you'd all finished, but that's fine.
Okay, and then my name's Paul. I'm a bald man.
But not single.
This is not Grindr.
Oh, right, okay. Well, I've been clearly misled from the start. I've got the New York Jets at 4 and 10. I've got the Panthers at 6. I have the Ravens at 14. The Steelers at 20. The Cardinals at 23. The Tetons at 26. And the Bengals at 31. I also have the Browns, who will not be picking.
Not unusual for you to have the Browns, though, is it? Your washing budget pretty massive, I should imagine.
I also have the Niners.
You do have the Niners. Now, we have had a couple of trades already made ahead of tonight's draft. So I'm going to announce them in advance, and then as we get to the picks, we'll know why we're there. First trade is, as Paul has mentioned, the Niners, who, coming into tonight's draft in the real world, do not have a first-round pick. But the unhappy and seemingly disenfranchised Deebo Samuel has been traded for the 11th pick to the Washington Commanders, who sacrificed the 11th overall selection to the 49ers, who assumedly will be looking for a great wide receiver to replace a great wide receiver. There's been some consternation at the table about this trade, but Deebo's unhappy. The Niners have no salary cap space because they've still got Jimmy G. And so, for me, today in Fantasyland, this one flies. Also...
You're wrong, but yeah.
Also, now, can you tell who else offered me a trade?
My point is, when Tyreek Hill, who isn't even a wide back, didn't command as much, and he's getting towards the end of his career. Deebo's young, a wide back.
Doesn't want to be a wide back though.
Well, last year it was all about being a wide back.
No, I agree with you, but apparently he wants to be a classic.
Paid. That's
wide
what he
receiver.
wants. He wants to be paid. It's all bullshit.
This is true.
Well, we did have a second trade made. So the Texans are sacrificing the 13th overall pick, their second selection in tonight's draft, for a number of picks in compensation, including moving down to 29, and then some second and third round selections as well.
Second and fourth.
Sorry, second and fourth round selections. Gary's Chiefs move up to 13 overall.
Which I think is excellent business.
It was a very fair trade. It really was. It was very amicable, less dissension on that particular matter.
I was driving at the time and told Jim to just make something up that was fair.
Obviously,
on the calculator.
you pulled over and sensibly.
No, use Siri.
Okay.
Like a modern man.
Oh, I've heard about those people. They use their old manscapers and everything. Anyway, the trades are open should anybody wish to slide one in during this, Paul, seriously. It's during this particular draft.
Or used to sliding one out.
I'll quickly stipulate
Not unfair.
a handful of rules. Again, consternation abound, but we're saying no more than 90 seconds per pick. Although this will be probably flexible, as there'll be a lot of waffling and somebody hasn't done their prep. All trades must be approved by me, especially if you're intertrading between your own teams. Don't like to see that too much intermingling. Not good for anyone. Picks must be submitted in writing with the correct college and position named. Now, you'll notice on your slips of paper, I forgot to write down position. So try and be sensible with it. I don't want players playing at, wing back from University of Bedford, because it's not happening. And we've also had some very rude names in the past, Paul. Again.
If you want perfection, you've come to the wrong place, mister. All right?
Great. I see we're off and running. Okay. With that in mind, it's time for the commissioner to take the stage and announce that the 2022 NFL draft is open.
John is on the clock. And I've got my first pick ready to go.
That's what I like. Organised. He hasn't even hit the button for the clock. So, with the first selection in the 2022 Snap UK NFL draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Ikem Ekwonu from Steve's Sweethearts. Brilliant.
Steve Sweets High.
Steve Sweets High.
Yeah. It's just in honour of our friend Steve, who stole all the sweets for tonight.
He really did. This is offensive tackle, first off the board.
Yeah, it's from NC State.
NC State. You've got to be thinking about the future as the Jags. Got to be building a line. This is always important for all franchises. And we've already ascertained in the run up to the draft tonight that linemen in this class are going to go high, both rushing and keeping the quarterback upright.
Do you know what? I was actually watching an article about who the Jags have signed this off-season with Doug Marrone going in there. And it's actually quite impressive, some of the people they've picked up. And if they can build some protection for Trevor Lawrence, it could be a hell of a season next year. Bounce back-wise.
It was the Jags, though.
I'm just saying.
No, I agree with you.
They've built well from last year.
They've done really well, but it's the Jags.
Well, they often end up with the first overall pick.
So should we move to the next second?
We should.
Captain Smugwash is on the clock.
The timer's been started.
The timer has been started. John didn't bother for himself because he knew what he was doing. We're looking at the least prepared man in the room now. Gary drafting for the Lions. Is he confident in his second overall selection? There's a lot of head shaking going on.
Always brilliant for a podcast.
I think so.
Well, I've got a minute, so I just wanted to see how well you were going to pad.
Oh, I can pad if you like.
But,
so the
no,
Lions needed everything. So you'd struggle to go far wrong in this. We're confident, I think, that Jared Goff is going to be the starter next season, unless you go wild card on us. But any of the quarterbacks that you might take in this first round are going to benefit from a year sitting.
Well, being as John is just cheating and looking over my shoulder, the pick is in.
The second pick in the 2022 NFL draft, seriously, position doggy style. For Michigan, Aiden Hutchins. He's off the board.
Yeah.
Sorry, Hutchinson. That is not what you've written here. You'll also tell I'm woefully underprepared and went to work at 4 o'clock this morning. Yeah, I mean, this is case of best player on the board for the Lions, surely.
Well, I think the edge rush is really important for them, and it was difficult. I nearly went with Thibodeau, but did I say that wrong, Jim?
Well, I had to think who you've... Thibodeau.
I'm going with Thibodeau, and because why not? And,
Absolutely.
I'm saying Thibodeaux.
Nice Thibodeaux. That sounds a bit dodgy.
Thibodeau.
Look, there's not a lot between those two. Trayvon Walker. You could pick any. I just think Hutchinson is going to be the machine they need that will really kind of start to make a difference.
Jim is on the clock.
Well, now, here we go. This is the countdown is on. We're looking at Jim, who's the draft expert, and submitted us a list of masses of names for us to pick through, and then was dumbfounded to find that John had submitted us an even bigger list of names for us to work our way through. If we need all 459 names that you've submitted, I'll be very upset.
Just for Paul.
It's mainly just for Paul to see if he can find some funny names to take on board.
There are some funny names.
The pick is in.
There we go.
And with the third pick of the Snap UK podcast NFL Draft 2022, the Texans from Alabama select Evan Neal.
Yep.
Again, case of best player on the board, I feel.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's between him and the defensive edge player Trayvon Walker. But I felt if you're going to play Davis Mills at quarterback, you've got to give him all the protection you need and all the weapons around him that you could possibly
It's
need.
fair to say that Mills was the second best rookie quarterback in the league last year, behind Mac Jones, who had the advantage of playing for the Patriots. But you must keep them upright. It's an absolute must.
Offensive line has been a mess of Texans for years, and they've got now with Neal, they'd have him on one side, Larry Tunsil on another. That's bookend tackles to protect whoever's playing quarterback over the next 5 years.
And they need that because their only major off-season acquisition has been the re-signing of Brandon Cooks. So,
4th and inches is on the
on there,
clock.
manfully, skillfully working all of his jobs that he's got to do. Paul, I believe the selection is yours.
Yeah, so I'm picking number 4 for the New York Jets, and they're a very interesting team because I think a little bit like we said with the Jags, the Jets haven't done bad business in the offseason. They've actually been remarkably un-Jet-like.
Yeah, let's wait and see how it pans out.
Yeah, I mean, they've got good draft capital here, so the selection I've made for number 4 is also, bear in mind, I've still got a very high draft pick at number 10.
Well, that is true.
So the pick is in.
Thank you. I do love the fact we're doing this all on little bits of paper. It really makes life easy. Why you couldn't just WhatsApp it to me, I didn't really know. But there you go.
We did WhatsApp for the last 2 years.
We couldn't sit together the last few years. The number 4 pick in the NFL draft for the Snap UK podcast, the New York Jets select from the Hunchback of Notre Dame, Kyle Hamilton. Well, I mean, yeah, that's high for a safety, but no harm particularly, I suppose, in bolstering a defence that really needs to prop up a lame offence.
So we get the prediction against where they are on the draft board,
Yeah.
where they're likely to land.
Yeah.
Where is it?
Number 4.
Yeah. So I've picked exactly where it's meant to be. I just thought that,
Don't worry, we're waiting for that to change.
so I went with what I thought was the best player. That's a team that defensively needed a replacement for Jamal Adams that never really happened, and I think that's spot on.
He's comfortably the best safety on the board. He's also been ranked in or at the top of many drafts overall when they're ranking all positions together. So there's nothing wrong with the selection at all. It's whether or not the Jets can make it work.
Some people have said he's the best player in the draft, haven't they?
Yeah. A lot of people. I mean, he's been consensus best player in
From
the
the
draft.
research I've
Yeah.
done, like pure talent-wise.
From the research I've done, which was listening to Jim at one point said he was the best player in the draft.
I think also you've got him going into a defensive a team with a defensive head coach.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, and also Jim said he's really good.
We're all relying on Jim here, I feel.
If he turns out to be a bust, then I might just quit.
Yeah.
Well, can you quit a thing you don't get paid for?
I could stop coming.
You should have tried that. You'd have less kids. Right.
John is on the clock.
I'm here all week.
So I have the 5th pick with the New York Giants, and it is in.
Thank you, John. The pick is in. And with the 5th pick in the Snap UK NFL draft, the New York Giants select from Mississippi, Charles Cross. Very nice, John. I like this one. Another O-lineman off the board. That's 3 in the top 5 picks. And again, this is a last throw of the dice to keep Daniel Jones upright and being evaluated, I guess.
It's also to, basically, I would have liked Ikem Ekwonu, so it's my own fault for picking him before. But I think we've got Thomas. We need to bolster the defensive line if we want Saquon to ever appear to be half the player he was.
I'd even forgotten he was there, to be honest.
So it's not just Jones, it's Saquon.
He has come out this week, Saquon, hasn't he, and said that he really feels the need to repay the faith the Giants have shown in him. I just
And
don't.
the salary they've paid him.
Is anyone convinced he's going to be able to reproduce anywhere near his best
knees are
form?
done.
It feels like Todd
Just-
Gurley.
yeah, it feels like
There's a great player in there.
Feels like so many running backs.
Yeah.
What's the average lifespan of a running back? Like 4 or 5 years?
3 years, really.
4th
3 whole
inches
years.
is on the
3 whole
clock.
years. No, it feels like
Thomas Rawls didn't get good till his 4th year.
Oh yeah, injury history is like one of the things you can probably rely on most to get when you're picking in the draft in terms of players who are injured in college are likely to be injured in the NFL. Sam Bradford, classic example. And I just feel when you've got a player with that much injury history, you just got to expect they're going to carry on being injured consistently.
It seems to be the way. There's not much chance to rest in the NFL. So, Paul, the clock is ticking. We're down to a minute 4. The Panthers are on the board. Let's see whether Will Greer is your first quarterback off the board again.
And who did I draft him for?
I believe it was the Panthers.
Was it the Panthers or the Saints?
No, it was the
The
Panthers.
Panthers.
And I'm guessing that means, I think I know where this is going.
Kenny Pickett.
Yes, he can.
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't. Yeah, because I on the way here said to Jim, the first quarterback off the board will be Paul at number 6 with Kenny Pickett because he wants to make the joke. But no, out of Liberty, the 6th overall pick, Malik Willis for the Panthers. And if you're going to go, you might as well swing for the guy with the biggest potential.
The biggest hands.
But this is the way I saw it. I saw it a little bit like Lamar going to the Ravens. This is just, all right, he's not Lamar Jackson. I suppose Lamar Jackson went at 32, didn't he?
Yep.
So this is the opportunity for them to do something different, and they need something different. And almost you've got...
John
That's how we do
is
it.
on the clock. Apologies.
John is smooth over there.
What on earth just happened?
So they need to do something different in Carolina, right? And I just feel you've also got the opportunity. You could have him sit behind Arnold for a year and just go, hey, Sam, what's everything you're doing right now? Cool, I'm not going to do that.
I think we've discussed before, basically all of there's 10 quarterbacks on the draft board ahead of me, but let's say all of the potential quarterbacks that could be chosen in this draft will benefit from at least 1 year sitting. There is no there's no Trevor Lawrence.
Nope.
There's no Mac Jones.
Nope.
Even. There just isn't in this
Because
class.
Trevor Lawrence turned out to be so NFL ready.
Yeah, but they believed he was ready.
I know
No
they
one believes these guys are ready because they're not. It's a poor from the off quarterback class, but there's 4 or 5 or maybe even 6 if you're prepared to stretch to say Carson Strong's a good quarterback who can't move.
No.
Quarterbacks
Not prepared to stretch that.
No, it's a shame because if he had knees, he'd be in the top 3 comfortably because the arm is good and the mind is good, but the body is not willing. And we all know how that feels at our age, right? So, John.
Oh, yeah. Number 7 for the New York Giants.
The Giants have selected out of LSU Derek Stingley Jr. at cornerback. Yes. Going defense with your second pick here for the Giants. # Build Back Better.
Yes. 1 second. Jim is on the clock. Jim, you're on the clock. So, yeah, we need to replace Garrett Bradbury, who looks like he's going to leave, and he's probably our best player. Yeah, and he...
James Bradbury.
What did I say?
Garrett Bradbury.
Sorry, James Bradbury. And this guy looks like an absolute star and actually would fit the scheme of our new defensive coordinator, which would be the exact opposite of what we've done for the last, the Gettleman years, we'll call them.
This is the Giants' best chance of actually getting really good results early out of some players. We know cornerbacks tend to struggle in their first year, but he shouldn't be judged on the first year. If he can make some small impact in year 1, but build for 3 or 4 really good years after that, this is where you're going to be judged because everything on this season for the Giants, for me anyway, is do we have the quarterback? And if you don't, then next year it's pick a quarterback. It's not try and build the defense. So you've got to get that in there while you can. I think this is a really good pair of moves you've made. Bolster the old line, see if you get anything out of Jones and Saquon, and restock the defense. James, the Falcons, what are they doing with their first overall pick in the NFL draft? At number 8 out of USC, first wide receiver off the board, and it is Drake London. I think this is fantasy reflecting reality for me. This is a great pick.
So, yeah, no, I'm denied between London and Garrett Wilson. I went with London because I think he's more...
Physical?
Yeah, more physical, more kind of ache into the AJ kind of Brown type.
Yeah,
player.
so Drake London on one
Yeah.
side and Kyle Pitts on the other side.
That's the other.
Some would say that the problem is Marcus
Yeah.
Mariota throwing to them.
Well, so Garrett Wilson plays a lot in the slot. I wanted an outside receiver to complement Kyle Pitts, who play in the middle. Also, he's a big-bodied wide receiver, big long arms. If Mariota can't throw it exactly accurately, at least both him and Pitts can reach up. and
Length is
grab it.
always a benefit.
Length is always.
I played a lot in the slot once. That is why I'm divorced. John,
John is on the clock.
it's the Seahawks, and there's a lot riding on this for me because they've traded away the franchise's best ever player. Fair? Like, no
Yeah.
one's debating that.
I think John needed a bigger box for the needs for Seahawks, didn't he?
This is true.
You
My
just
point
run out,
here,
like-
my point here being, they've stuck with 79-year-old Pete Carroll. How long do you get to rebuild at that age? Not long, surely. Like, you've just seen off the best player in franchise history. You've got to have an instant impact. They need to be in the playoffs this year.
I mean, to be fair, he survived COVID, so
They're
to,
not
you know,
going to be in the
They're
playoffs
not
this
going to
year.
be anywhere.
I
near
think
the
they need to be.
playoffs.
Otherwise, I think the franchise is going to look and think, well,
So
we've
you've got
made
the
a mistake.
Cardinals that have got a home Super Bowl to fight for.
And a
then
disgruntled
then
quarterback.
The Niners and
The Rams,
The
The defending
Super Bowl
champions.
defending
The
champions.
defending champions and the Niners team without Debo playing a guy that might not be ready at quarterback. I wouldn't be so worried about the Niners at the moment.
If the Seahawks get to the playoffs, I'm going to grow hair.
You can grow
You
hair.
can grow hair just in certain places.
Oh, the pick is in with the 9th overall selection. The Seattle Seahawks. He just wanted me to be able to pronounce Kayvon Thibodeau out of Oregon. Brackets, whatever an edge is. Again, this is an attempt, I guess, to rebuild the Legion of Boom somewhat in Seattle.
Yeah, I get the feeling that the quarterback issue will be resolved in.
We suspect Baker, maybe,
Baker.
or Jimmy G.
It will be resolved elsewhere. It won't
Yeah.
be in the draft.
Free agency, it would be calling.
I just say, Pete Carroll is a very old man. He doesn't have time to bring through a new quarterback. He needs someone sort of.
Jim
off the
feels
shelf.
that Drew Lock could actually be the starter. How much worse is Drew Lock than Baker Mayfield?
A lot.
Is he?
I think. Yeah.
Drew Lock, I would say, is a level below, or 2 levels below,
Yeah.
but he's consistently 2 levels below. Baker is either really good or really terrible.
Yeah, but I still think on Baker's worst days, he's still like not that much worse than Drew Lock on his best days.
I think that's probably fair.
Because I mean, we can I know Baker flattered to deceive with Adele, Jarvis, Landry. I mean, the wideouts at Denver are also pretty decent, and Drew Lock's looked shit. So I think you just pick the best player on the board for them, and hope edge rushers can come in, make instant impact. I mean, eventually you're going to have to stop paying that safety as the edge rusher as well.
The problem is Seahawks haven't got enough cap space for Baker at the moment. They've only got 15 million.
That is a massive
They
issue.
need, I think, 18 or 19
Here
million.
is the sample size for Drew Lock's career. So he's started 21 games so far. He's 8-13 as the starter with Denver, which is a decent team. And that's a problem because I think the Denver team he's leaving is better than the Seahawks team he's coming into.
100%.
Oh yeah.
And so what makes you think he's a viable starter? They might as well have stuck with Geno for my money.
I don't think the Seahawks will be gunning for playoffs this year. Either, I don't think they're going to get there, but I don't think they're set up to go there. I think they're not tank. I just think this year's almost like a write-off year. I think next year they'll then probably replace the coach and the general manager. They'll go into the draft with 2 first-round picks, and hopefully kind of restock and come back. Well, hopefully not.
4th and inches is on the clock. Pause on the clock now.
Didn't you just say that?
Yes, I know, but he can't hear that.
This is the issue where we don't all wear headphones because, we don't want to.
No, exactly.
It's nice having John being producer and chiming in a little bit more this evening. Getting off the fence. So the Jets on the clock at number 10. Paul, for your 3rd selection so far this evening. And I'm not seeing a name on the card. This is an interesting one.
That's pick 11.
Oh, sorry.
2 in a row now.
He
Let's
has.
pick 10.
Oh, pick 10 is in. So I'm looking at the wrong card. Pick 10 out of Georgia. And amazed to find he's still on the board at this point, if I'm perfectly honest. It's Trayvon Walker. I think
That was the only reason I picked him, because I couldn't believe he was still on the board.
in reality there isn't a hope in hell that that defensive lineman Trayvon Walker from Georgia makes it to number 10.
He could be potentially the first pick.
Yeah, I mean, and this is always an issue that we get. You don't know, but Jim and I were saying on the way here, the last few years you've been able to pick 5 of the top 10 picks reasonably comfortably. This year, if you pick 2, I think you've done well, because who knows? It's just a case of best player available, and then that is in the eye of the beholder.
4th inches is on the clock.
Oh look, guess who it is again?
Hello.
With the 11th selection. So the 49ers trading into the first round, losing their best defensive player, causing some problems at this table, but taking a
I
selection.
guess he's taken a cornerback.
If he has, it wouldn't be the worst thing.
It
to
would
do.
not be the worst thing to do.
Yeah, because the 49ers haven't struggled at cornerback for years, have they?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really nice having 2 49ers fans boring holes into me at the moment. That's right.
But Paul, what are you going to do with Matt Cole?
I don't know.
Kenny Pickett's still on the board.
Yeah.
This feels very much like a Zonovan Knight type of pick to me. I don't know, maybe just like that Daniel Falale. That's the guy they found in the gym. I just needed just a freak O-lineman. In all seriousness, that's who I've picked.
With the 11th selection in the Snap UK NFL podcast draft, the 49ers select Sauce Gardner, cornerback out of Cincinnati. This is exactly what the Niners should do, apart from the fact they'll need to replace Debo in your world. But this is a great pick because it has caused the Niners problems for years, having good but unfit or unworthy cornerbacks. Yeah.
Old cornerbacks. I don't mind it at all. I think you mentioned Trayvon Walker being surprised he's there. I think I'm surprised Sauce Gardner's still there. He's a lock-in for the top 10, I think.
But will he definitely go ahead of Derek Stingley Jr.? I'm not sure that he's guaranteed.
I think
so,
he will.
yeah.
I'm not sure it's guaranteed. A couple of years ago, we had this conversation about Jeff Okudah, and look what's happened to Jeff Okudah.
Well, at the time, you can only work with what you've got, and he was predicted to be the top corner.
yeah,
and
he was.
the top corner.
Turns out, trash.
Sauce Gardner's never had a touchdown thrown on him in college.
DeAndre Baker hadn't had a touchdown thrown on him for 2 years.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence hadn't lost a game. These things are irrelevant once you get up to the big
I
boys.
don't know. I think they're still relevant.
Irrelevant.
I think
Irrelevant. I guarantee you he concedes a minimum of 4 touchdowns this season.
Oh yeah, he will obviously concede a touchdown this season.
Well,
but
and it's irrelevant.
it's still he's playing at the highest level he can. And he's doing it well.
And he's going into a good defense there as well.
Yep.
Gary is on the clock.
So, number 12, it's Gary on the clock with the Vikings. This is the man who wanted a minimum of 2 minutes per pick because woefully underprepared as he's, quote, too busy at work this week to sit around with you wankers. I mean, it's true. That's more.
I've stopped doing that while we're recording.
I'm pleased to hear that. It was really marking the table. So, the Vikings have got, well, for me, a fairly sizable number of needs. They've got to rebuild the defense. They need a tight end. I mean,
No tight ends in the first.
no, there are no first-round tight ends, but they really do. They need one because every quarterback needs a tight end. And Kirk Cousins needs to be able to complete intermediate throws to tight ends.
I think it's more on the defense side. I'll be going. I think cornerback or defensive tackle.
Turns out Isaiah's not likely at tight
But
end.
after Sauce Gardner and Derek Stingley Jr. have both gone, there isn't a cornerback worth taking this high. There isn't.
No, it'd be a reach for Andrew Booth Jr. But
It's not like Gary to do a reach.
I've seen drafts with Trent McDuffie in the first.
yeah, well, no, both Booth Jr. and McDuffie should go in the first round, but it's
Not this high.
quite high.
Yeah, I think here we're probably looking, I would guess, maybe George Karlaftis, whose name I can't pronounce, off the edge. That would give some more bite to what the Vikings are trying to do on defense. If not, Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt, solid D lineman. But as we said before, there are a few outstanding players in this draft. The pick is in at number 12, and there's been a lot of crossing out on this one.
Yeah, well, I did think about taking a cornerback because that is probably their biggest need, and I was going to take Sauce Gardner. before Paul, with his unrealistic trade, moved up.
But he's not bitter about this. Okay, well, with the 12th overall selection, it's Jermaine Johnson, edge rusher out of Florida State.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, this is great. I think the Vikings do need to add some bite to this because Kirk Cousins, whilst he's been a good player, the defense needs to carry the day, and the Vikings
The
need to
offense
keep doing
isn't
that.
the problem, is it?
No, it really isn't. They put up plenty of points. They don't throw many interceptions. It's just that to get you over the edge, sometimes you need the edge.
I think Johnson on one side and Daniel Hunt on the other side. That's a good pair of pass rushers. And yeah,
Gary is on the clock.
no, that's fine. They've got to get after they've got to get after Aaron Rodgers.
It's a big problem. Now, he's backed himself into the corner slightly with no preparation and doing a trade, but Gary's also on the clock with the 13th overall selection for the Chiefs. Now, the Chiefs, do they go for the second wide receiver off the board? It's in reality, it's likely that's what they need. You've got to do something to replace Tyreek Hill, right?
Absolutely.
You're not relying on Juju Smith.
I'd love to see this be Jameson Williams here.
Well, let's see. He's writing furiously. And I believe the selection is in. With the 13th overall selection, the Chiefs choose, out of Ohio State, Garrett Wilson, wide receiver. I think that's a fair shout. There's not much to choose between the wide receivers in the next three positions up and down, so no problem with that at all. Gary, what's you thinking?
Well, I think in a lot of the mocks, he's going first of the wide receivers.
Yeah.
A lot of people say he's the best in the class. So I think the Chiefs have got the draft capital to move up, haven't they? They've got a decent roster.
They haven't got many needs,
They,
really.
they don't really need to, but they've got to replace Tyreek Hill. Otherwise, what is the point of having Patrick Mahomes without anybody to throw to? So, you can't just have everybody marking Kelsey either. So, for me, really strong, fast, it's done really well in college. So, yeah, why wouldn't you take one of the, you what's the point of picking 29th and 30th? It's just a waste of your time, isn't it?
I think it's a great move for the Chiefs, to be honest with you. If they could pull this one off, I think they'd be sensible to do so.
4th and inches is on the clock.
So that brings me to you, Paul, with the Ravens on the clock at 14. Not often you see the Ravens selecting this highly in the draft, usually in the 20s. So what are we going for? What do we think? They've got some needs. Their first need is to be able to overcome the rest of their own division. So what are you doing to contribute to that?
So the pick I'm about to go for is based on O-line. So I wanted to keep Lamar upright. If we've only potentially got him for another year, based on what we were talking about last week, I wanted to keep him upright, and also the pick is in.
Out of Iowa, it's Tyler Linderbaum,
Yes.
and you think this is the best way of protecting your franchise quarterback and maybe keeping him around for the future, showing that you're building for him?
That's the best centre in the draft, and they weren't playing a centre in their O-line at the back end of last year.
That's true. They'd had some problems on that O-line. I think it's a great move, to be honest. I think it's really important for the Ravens to try and demonstrate to Lamar that they want him and for him to feel like he could win the Super Bowl without getting crushed with the Ravens. I don't think you'll find many better head coaches for him to work for. So now, with this pick, they've got a lot going for them.
Jim is on the clock.
Selecting 15th overall. It's James, he's back. It's the first of two picks in this first round for the
I
Eagles.
can't wait to see who he pairs with Jalen Hurts. Is he going to try and protect him?
What
Is he
makes you
gonna-
think it won't
is
be a
he gonna-
quarterback?
Is he going to try and give him some support, or is he
Or is he
literally
gonna
going to try
replace
and replace him?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if one of these picks is to replace him. I would be surprised if it was the first of the two, though, because that's an expensive pick.
So he goes for the anti-Jalen Hurts and goes for Carson Strong. No mobility is the way forward.
Whatsoever. Poor Carson Strong. The pick is in with the 15th overall selection. Here's a name he's already mentioned. The Eagles select out of Alabama Jameson Williams, wide receiver, basically to replace Jalen Reagor, who hasn't worked out, right?
Yeah, he's shit.
Was he selected number 15th overall?
24.
2 years ago. 24, was it?
This is the third year in a row that the Eagles are going to select, well, based on our mock, that the Eagles are selecting a wide receiver in the first round.
Some of them have got to pan out, right? One of them's...
Devonta Smith's decent. I think you pair now Jameson Williams with Devonta Smith. I don't like Jalen Hurts. I think that's well known within this podcast and our listeners. But you got to give him another chance. Give him some weapons to throw to. I want to see him go over 3,500 yards passing this year with 2 good receivers, a good tight end. Later on, you can try and improve the running back and an offensive line. But Williams coming off of an ACL, but practicing really well. I think he's a stud of a wide receiver and could possibly be the rookie of the year if it pans out.
Yeah, I mean, all of that is a sensible move, and it makes sense because the Eagles need to get one more evaluation in on their quarterback as well.
And I think that's part of the reason they trade with the Saints to give themselves another pick next year, because if Hurts is bad, then they can go into a quarterback-heavy draft and pick a quarterback.
Speaking of the Saints,
John is on the clock.
yes, it is you, John. At number 16 overall, the Saints select out of Iowa, Trevor Penning. Yeah, I like this. I think this is a really good shout, to be fair. Tell me what your thinking is.
Of all the things that the Saints have lost this offseason, it's Armstead is the main thing. And this guy's a sort of a smash mouth type of offensive lineman. So, yeah, I think... I think this is the guy that they'll want to just absolutely give the O-line a sort of a bit of a break.
The Armstead loss is massive. We know we have to protect Jameis, right? If we're the Saints, you're going with Jameis. Do you know what? I have no problem with going with Jameis. You look back on his career when he's coached properly, which we've seen more than once, he's putting up 40 touchdowns or 30 touchdowns and yeah, all right, we had the 30, whatever it was, picks. But for the 5 or 6 games that he started last season, he threw 11 touchdowns to 2 picks.
They won 5-2.
They were 5-2 under Jameis when he started. I have no
he gets
problem.
Michael Thomas back as well. Give him...
Theoretically.
Supposedly.
So you can overthrow him.
It doesn't matter. Michael Thomas only ever goes 8 yards. He doesn't need long, but just give him that 2 seconds to get the ball out.
Yeah, I like it. I think Jameis has been tarnished, certainly by us, but by other people with this reputation of turning the ball over. But let's not forget, one of the greatest quarterbacks that we've ever seen. He maybe isn't in anybody's top 10, but he was a great player to watch, was Brett Favre. And Brett Favre's turnover ratio was phenomenal because he just kept going after the win. And Jameis, with the right surroundings, is a very similar player. He just is.
Said it a lot last season. I think too much is made of interceptions. I think if you don't try anything, if you don't take a risk, then you're not going to throw interceptions. Aaron Rodgers is the case in point.
Okay, well, that's the first 16 picks done in the draft. We'll be back with the Chargers at number 17 after this short break. Welcome back from your commissioner. Quickly then, before we move on to the 17th overall selection, let's do a recap through. So the number 1 overall pick was John with the Jacksonville Jaguars. John, who did you take?
Ikem Ekwonu.
Just wanted to hear you say it rather than me say it. I mean, there's a chance. Offensive line, it's not a glamorous first pick, but they certainly need the help everywhere.
Solid first pick.
Solid.
I think we've discussed outside the podcast that we think it could be one of maybe 3 or 4.
3 or 4, yeah.
But this is all about protecting the pick you made last year.
Having a quick look through who's been selected where and why. John, you also come up because, according to the chart we're using, your 16th overall selection of Trevor Penning is rated as having the biggest difference from mock drafts that everyone watches and listens to your actual positional selection, a difference of 19 positions. I think that's massively unfair on Trevor Penning. Are you happy that you selected him ahead of Kenyon Green, Bahad Ryman? No problems for you? Because there aren't for me.
No. I think he fits what the Saints need, and I think what we've probably got is a ranking that's maybe a little bit out of date.
Oh,
a ranking on another ranking, they have Trevor Penning at 20.
Yeah, seems fair.
A differential of 4.
Paul, you traded into the first round with the Niners and then took Sauce Gardner at cornerback, solving an issue for the 49ers. Is he, in your opinion, the best cornerback in the draft, or will it be Derek Stingley? What do you think?
I think there's too much press coverage around Derek Stingley's injury history, which would make... And also there's too much... Gardner's never had an interception thrown on him. Sorry, never had a touchdown thrown on him in his entire college career.
Imagine if someone brought that up on here.
I just think there's a lot more positive press coverage around Gardner than Stingley, so I could see Gardner going first.
And while I've got you, you also selected Malik Willis, number 6 overall, to quarterback the Panthers. Is he sitting a year for you, or is he starting straight away?
If I was the GM and this was my team, he'd be sitting a year behind Darnold, just learning the playbook, learning the NFL, coming in for a fourth quarter now and again when it's either lost or already won. Just
Lost then.
So 17 times.
yeah. And also, Darnold didn't last the season with him.
No.
So
PJ Walker's still there.
XFL legend PJ Walker.
Jim, happy with your haul so far?
Yeah, so far so good.
You took 2 wide receivers, I think. Oh no, two wide receivers.
receivers.
Drake London, Jameson Williams. Happy that's the correct order on the actual night.
I think they fit the places where they should be. If that makes sense. So
Yeah.
either could go to either place and it'd be fine. I just think Drake London's a better fit of what the Falcons are trying to do on offense, and Jameson Williams I think is just a great player. And I think I think between him and Garrett Wilson is 1 or 2 in terms of kind of ranking of wide receivers.
And finally, Gary, before we move on, with the Lions at number 2, you took Aiden Hutchinson off the edge from Michigan, widely ranked as the best player in the draft. Is this a case of the Lions taking the best available player because they have so many needs?
Well, I don't know. I think the defense is where you've got to start with that team. I think the offense showed some green shoots last year, didn't it? And I think the defense needs to keep them closer in games. The offense isn't going to score 30 points to win a game, but so I think they take the best defensive player.
Sure.
Because you don't really care that much if Jared Goff gets hurt. So you can find a replacement. Is my point.
Well, that name again is David Blau.
But I think you go defensive. Whatever the best defensive player is, you take them. Whoever you think that might be. So they might take Hutchinson. They could take Walker. I think they take one of those 2 players.
Okay. Well, while I've got you in conversation,
Gary is on the clock.
the Los Angeles Chargers are picking at 17, and that is you, Gary. So, now he's umming and ahhing here, and that concerns me because he's only got enough slips of paper for the required amount of
have
selections.
I?
Yeah, you have, yeah. So you're going to reuse one of these. If you've got a spare one, that means somebody has not got one because I very correctly counted them out before I came here today. So the time pressure is on, even though John has not started the clock. I'd say it's down to about 8 seconds.
I suspect Paul might be short one because I traded out the first round.
That's very true. And the selection is in right at the buzzer there. With the 17th overall selection in the Snap UK podcast draft out of Clemson, the Los Angeles Chargers select Andrew Booth Jr., cornerback. Happy with this selection because you were mulling that hard.
Do you know what? I was in 2 minds. So we know the AFC is absolutely stacked at quarterback now. So whatever help you can get in the AFC teams at what we know is a bit of a dearth position at the moment in cornerback, I think you've got to really consider it. But then I also think that the team's got to protect Justin Herbert for him to be as good as you need him to be. So I nearly took an O-lineman, but I'm not sure that there was an O-lineman that totally fitted the need there. So that was the reason why I didn't in the end. But I was so close, I wrote 2 slips out. You are correct.
I saw you debating. And that could be the real situation in the draft room on the night, because I think a lot of teams are going to be caught between 2 or 3 selections because there are very few outstanding players.
I think the reason why I made that in the end was Justin Herbert will be Justin Herbert whether he gets another O-lineman or not. But if they have cornerback support, they might win a couple of extra games. That was my reasoning.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I like the selection. I think it's a sensible move.
It's weird because it's not on their list of needs, direct needs.
No.
Secondary depth, a lot of people would say. But, yeah, a good player on the board.
Okay.
Jim is on the clock.
Next up then, Jim, the second of the Eagles selections on the night, 18 overall. Now, this is a real chance to make an impact for the Eagles. They've already taken a great wide receiver, potentially a great wide receiver. Do they stick with the offense and try and just hurtle some points across the board and hope that Jalen Hurts is the right player? Or is Jim going to sort of butter both sides of his bread here and go on the defense? I'm not sure what he's going for, but he's very studiously flicking through the pages of his study books.
You know he's taking a quarterback because he hates Jalen Hurts.
That's not how you spell Carson Strong, Jim.
Now, there is.
They can't have another Carson.
You are forgetting. He could pick special teams. There is that unbelievable punter that could go second round.
If the unbelievable punter
I
gets...
hate the Eagles. Just don't like Jalen Hurts.
He's taking a quarterback, isn't he?
No.
He has not taken a quarterback, I can confirm. So with the 18th overall selection, the Eagles select out of Georgia Devontae Wyatt, defensive tackle.
You son of a...
I think this is a really solid pick. I like this one a lot.
I think with Fletcher Cox now, what is he, 32, and he's only on a year contract.
Yeah, he might be older,
than that.
34.
He's only on a year extension. I think you drafted his replacement to play alongside him for a year. Devontae Wyatt is dominant in the middle of a very good Georgia defense. So I think he'll stop the run as well. He's got to play against a good running team in Cowboys twice a year. So yeah, I'm happy with that, and I think that serves the Eagles well.
Fletcher Cox, in case you're interested, is only 31. Yeah,
So he will be 32.
will be 32 at some point.
I expect he'll be 32.
Yeah,
Anyway, it's old for a defensive tackle.
it is, and it's bad when you're looking at a player born in 1919 saying it's old for an NFL player. We're all feeling a little bit older right now. Who is next up on the clock?
John
It is
next.
John is on the clock.
It's the Saints.
It is the Saints with their second selection in the first round. So far, the Saints picked Trevor Penning. Now, I think they've got some serious needs still, but for me, now this in reality
There
could
is
see a second quarterback chosen because they need to develop someone. I like keeping hold of Jameis. I like the fact they've made a solid early decision on what they're doing with Matey, that they always allowed to run around and pretend he's quarterback.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think if it gets to 19 and they have their choice of all but one quarterback, which I'm not sure will happen, but if they do, that's quite an opportunity, isn't it?
I'd say so. The only, in reality, Dennis Allen's a defensive-minded coach. He might want a defensive player, but let's see. What has John decided to do? He's still scrolling. I'd say the clock is down to about 30 seconds here as well. This is the issue.
He
I know
conveniently didn't start it.
Yes, how very convenient.
How very convenient. The selection is in with the 19th overall selection. The New Orleans Saints select Chris Olave.
Son of a...
Who's
Olave.
Olave. Yeah, you love the way I can't pronounce any of these names. Out of Ohio. John, what's your thinking here?
I think you're not going to get a quarterback who's better than Jameis. I think, why don't you feed Jameis? We're not sure if Michael Thomas is going to come back. This guy makes big plays. As well, in the background, you've also got Hill, who can do nothing but just chuck it long. This guy might be able to help with that as well. I think...
They're not going to play Taysom Hill this season.
He might be playing at tight end.
Yeah, but not under centre.
But, you've got Jameis there. Occasionally, feed him what he's good at, which is making big plays. If you've got a offensive lineman who can replace Armstead, let's make the Saints fun again.
I like this. And if they do get Michael Thomas back, which looks possible, if not probable at the moment, then the more coverage you can draw away from him, the more effective he will be. So, yeah, nothing wrong with this at all.
4th and Inches is on the clock.
He's looking at you, Paul, furiously scribbling. I'm guessing the last two selections have really dented your hopes for this first round.
Yeah, I was going to pick either one of those two players for this pick.
I mean, that knackers you because you only knew 4 names coming into the draft.
I really don't think we're going to have a very accurate draft this year.
No,
we do what we often when we do what we think, it still lands, doesn't it?
Yeah, we tend to get 3 or 4.
But I do think this year we are looking at it slightly differently than potentially the teams
I
are.
think you could say that about any mock draft from any so-called expert.
You can. This year it's very
This
wide
year it's
open. There are not.
isn't it?
There are not many mock drafts that coincide with each
like
other.
we said last year, you put Trevor Lawrence at 1, Zach Wilson at 2. Most people
You
had
knew
that.
4 quarterbacks were
Yeah.
going in the first round.
Most people had 1 or 2 locked in, and everyone's like, "Yep, that's right." This year, no idea.
Okay, with the 20th overall selection, the Pittsburgh Steelers select from Arkansas, or Arkansas as they like to call it, but I prefer Arkansas. Treylon
That's what people
Burks.
up north call it.
It is what people up north call it. Treylon Burks. Paul, is this a panic pick, or do you feel this is something they can genuinely benefit from? Because,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, I'm not sure this guy is going this high up in the first round in reality. So is this a case of getting one while there's still enough on the board to make a difference?
This is a guy who's got fantastic intangibles physically, but there's worries about immaturity. And if there's a team that can deal with an immature receiver, it's Pittsburgh.
Nobody likes an immature receiver.
But this is someone who could probably benefit from a Mike Tomlin. And
Yeah,
this is a team
I think
that
that's fair.
has a clear need at wideout. And for me, from the limited research I did, that was the best wideout
3
available.
years from now, better or worse than Juju Smith-Schuster?
At TikTok, probably better.
Gary is on the clock.
Now, for me, an interesting one. My team are on the clock early for the New England Patriots for the second year in a row, really.
Later than last year, to be fair.
Yeah, later than last year, but not by very much, not by enough. Gary, you have the New England Patriots. We all know how much you love them. They've got a raft of requirements: cornerback, wide receiver, safety, linebacker is for me the biggest one, replacing Dante Hightower. I don't know how you do that. So, what are you thinking here? With the 21st overall selection in the Snap UK NFL, there's been a lot of scribbling out going on here as well.
That's the one from last time.
Oh, I see. Right, I'm with you. So you've gone for... I can't read your handwriting.
I've gone for Devin Lloyd.
Devin Lloyd. Cornerback?
Linebacker.
Oh, linebacker. So I can't read your handwriting at all. Yes, well, I think this is a good shout then, because linebacker is what they need. According to the chart we're working from, not the top-rated linebacker, but you're comfortable with this selection?
Yeah. He has all the skills you would need, very athletic, and his leadership is supposed to be extremely good.
That is what we're looking
for. They think that he will be a great character fit in the Patriots. He's predicted to go to the Patriots in quite a few mock drafts that I've seen.
Yeah.
It's a definite need. You need wide receiver, but like 5 wide receivers have gone in the first 21.
There
picks.
isn't one worth picking there now this
No.
highly.
But I just think 5 in the top 20, that's really high. So it'll be interesting to see how that actually plays out. But he's a very talented player. You've got the need, and it fits. I'd love to pick you something you don't need just for shits and giggles, but
You're trying to be
try and
sensible
take
about
it
this.
slightly sensible.
Gary is on the...
Oh.
Jim is on
You
the
had
clock.
one job.
Apologies.
One job. Right, next up on the board then, Jim, it's you with the first selection for the Packers. The Packers have 2 selections in the first round, which is massive for a team that doesn't have Devontae Adams. However, the best 5 receivers, supposedly, have all gone. So, I mean...
They have a number 3 overall who's gone there.
Yes.
Sammy Watkins.
Yeah, that's true. But, I mean, really, to replace the best wide
I
receiver
think
again?
there will be a wide receiver. When it actually happens, there will be a wide receiver available for the Packers to take.
Yeah, I suspect there will be. If there's not, I suspect they'll be looking around the league thinking who
Please take a quarterback, whoever's got them. Please.
Me.
to replace Jordan Love.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, in reality, the Packers should be shopping one of these picks and looking for a number 1 wide receiver of someone else's team.
Rumours are they're after Darren Waller, the tight end of the Raiders. They
Who-
wanted him as part of the Devontae Adams
Right.
trade, but you can't trade a player with another player who's on the franchise tag. And
Can you not?
No, apparently, and Devontae Adams was on the franchise tag.
I don't think the Raiders will let Darren Waller go. That would be fool's game to do that. Right, with the 22nd pick overall, the Packers select out of Georgia, Jordan Davis. Oh, Jim, happy with this?
Yeah.
Defensive lineman?
Do you know what's really angered me about the Packers, probably for the last 3, 4, 5 years? The inability to stop the run.
Okay.
You can run over the Packers, and the
That is
49ers have done it so often. And
in championship games.
in big games. Like, it just annoys me that they never looked at this. They never looked at linebacker, and now they've got a 6'6", massive 341 pound interior defensive lineman who can just stuff the run and also collapse the pocket in front of them as well.
4th and inches is on the
Right,
clock.
I'm looking around the table. It's Paul. Arizona Cardinals are on the board.
I would like to just say on this, I did offer Paul the chance to make any kind of trade moves with Kyler Murray, and he wouldn't even entertain it.
Really?
I didn't even get a response back from the organisation.
Paul, that's mightily disappointing.
But I did ask him, like, is there any movement on Kyler? Because what happens if between now and then they just can't make it work with Kyler?
No, I don't think that's an issue.
I think he's a massive bellend.
I agree with you
I'm
there.
not sure. I'm not sure he's going to be worth the money, but I am sure they're going to pay him.
Yeah.
And that's a problem because I think the Cardinals are one of those organisations that can't afford to let a really good player walk out the door. They've been in dark places before. Then don't forget they managed to win a lot of games with Carson Palmer, but you don't always get that option.
Their home Super Bowl year as well.
But who are you going to replace him with that means you can win straight away? Very few people. Very few people. You could say the best available quarterback to them if they can't draft one is Jimmy G.
And that's not going to happen.
And that seems very unlikely. So I think in reality they're going to end up paying Kyler. So I feel like we're buying time here. No, Paul is ready. So Paul, with 12 seconds left remaining on the clock, the Arizona Cardinals select. Yes, here's my fella, George Karlaftis out of Purdue. I like this. Happy with your selection or panicking again a little bit now, Paul?
A little bit panicking because I thought they would be. I didn't see the amount of edge rushers going to this point. I had in my research, I had them going for Jermaine Johnson at this point, but I wanted to pick an edge rusher just because in the last 5 seasons, JJ Watt's played 16 games in 2 of them.
Yeah, and
Lost
obviously
Chandler Jones as well.
Yeah, they've lost Chandler Jones. Watt's production's obviously falling down a little bit with age. They need to start restocking. I like George Karlaftis. I think it's a really good selection. I'm not sure he'll be on the board this late, if I'm perfectly honest. I think in reality, he goes. He's a good player.
Yeah, he is. I could see him both going before and also dropping out in the first round entirely.
Well, and this is what we mean about this year's draft. There are so few consensus
I think
picks.
you're now getting to that range where anyone picked now could do exactly what we've just said. They could either be earlier, they could be right where we're selecting them, or they could be later, much later.
Well, with that in mind,
John is on the clock.
smooth.
How annoying
Oh,
must that be for the listeners?
probably very annoying.
Remember that time I used to make it like Saints 39-20 Bengals.
Yes.
And everyone fucking hated it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine it's less than that, but not by much.
That was annoying for us.
If it helps, I found that hilarious.
The 24th overall pick, the Dallas Cowboys, who are GM'd by John for the evening, select Zion Johnson. Oh, John. Offensive line, I mean, it's always a need. It's always a need. They've got to replace Zach Martin.
Lael Collins.
Lael Collins, yes, correct. Lael Collins. Massive move for them because Lael Collins has been a stalwart of right tackle.
It's just what basically Zion Johnson can help them. They're very proud of their offensive line because you can tell because they pay theirs the most in the league. This gives them a bit of a break with that and a chance to rebuild. Because you've got as well. You've got a very expensive quarterback and running back, and you've got to so give them some protection, give them some room.
Is it fair to say this year they need reasonably big production out of Zeke before they look at moving on?
Yeah, I would say so.
I'd say so. I don't know how many years left he's got on his contract, but it feels like
3, I think.
But you've also got Sue Pollard, who's doing really well.
Well, this is what I mean. If Pollard keeps matching or nearly matching Zeke's production, surely at some point they've got to...
Get rid of Zeke.
Yeah.
Depends what it costs to get rid of him as well, but I agree. One thing I like about Zion Johnson is he, during the Senior Bowl, he practiced taking snaps at centre, so he could also be a replacement for Travis Frederick in the long term.
Gary is on the clock.
We wouldn't want to miss you pressing that button. Yeah. So, 25th overall selection, and a team that I don't think expected to be selecting so highly, the Bills. Gary, you're GMing the Bills for this evening. He's writing furiously, which normally means I can't read it. Not a lot of needs really on the Bills for me. I mean, we've listed some cornerback,
I think
running
is the
back,
biggest one.
but
I only realised about 30 seconds ago that I was on the clock. That
brilliant.
was the issue.
Okay,
I had to look at Jim in desperation and go, am I on the clock? Because I can't hear the buzzers.
no,
So,
that's true. But yeah, so the Bills, you could take this Bills squad into next season without a single pick out of the draft, and they'd still be in the
They'd still
top
win
6
their
teams.
tickets.
Yeah. They're still one of the best 6 teams without selecting anyone. So you can't really go far wrong from this. Trent McDuffie, cornerback out of Washington for the Bills at number 25. I mean, on our board at least, he's the best cornerback remaining. So you can't really fault this selection. It is something they do need to improve on in their secondary.
I think he's a good player. I really nearly took a running back.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't had a running back go yet. We've got Kenneth Walker III and Breece Hall as our top 2 running backs. I'm not sure a running back goes in the first round this year, in reality.
I'm not sure either, and that's why I didn't take him. I nearly took Breece Hall, but I decided it just wasn't the one.
For me, he's the best one, but it's...
There's some mock drafts, because it is their biggest need, that they just get who you want out of the draft.
Yeah.
Because is he going to be there come the second round for the Bills?
Probably not, no.
Probably not. So they may well go for that option to make sure they get the player they want. But I think it's between those 2 positions for them.
4th inches is on the clock.
All right, well...
Paul's on the clock.
It's our favourite team. It's the Tetons. Now, this hasn't had a mention. I'm going to give it a little mention just because I can. But at some point, and it won't be, but they do need to pick someone to replace Tannehill.
Yeah.
While Tannehill can still play and mentor a quarterback, because I think he would be an extremely good mentor for a quarterback. I think he's sort of seen all sides of this. He's had extreme success. He's had wretched failure. He's worked with lots of different people and players. Teammates love him. He's been around the league for, what did we work it out as? This is his 11th season now. And I feel, like I say, I don't think this is going to happen because I think it's too early. But there's not been much talk at all about the Titans picking a successor. And yet we know there's been some rumblings about the discourse and not happy with some of his postseason performances. So surely there's a tipping point coming for the Tetons. I don't think Paul's about to hand me a quarterback, but for me, it's something I wanted to highlight. Anyway, Paul, with the 26th overall selections, the Tetons select from the Midnight Train to Georgia, Nakobe Dean.
Yeah, so having a look at the research I've done around linebacker, that's a strong defense. I wanted to build on it. Nakobe Dean at Georgia has been playing really well with a strong D-line with defensive tackles, and you could see what Tennessee are good at within the Bengals game in the playoffs. That's a linebacker who could absolutely destroy with the great D-line that they have.
Yeah, considering the defensive nature of the coaching at Tennessee as well, they could make great use out of Nakobe Dean. Now, again, this is a player that if he drops this far in reality, I think they should snatch him up. Whether he will or not, and we keep saying this, some of these players have got to drop, but I think we've had a run on wide receivers quite early and maybe cornerbacks quite early. There's a good chance Nakobe Dean goes higher than I don't know, half of our draft board, because he can be an impact player immediately, whereas a lot of these cornerbacks take a year or two to come to fruition. Next up, then.
John is on the clock.
He's rifling through his information here at the moment.
Doing a lot of research over there.
It's the Tampa Bay Bucks, disappointed to be selecting as high as 27th overall. And there's a lot of mulling going. He hasn't started the clock again, by the way. It's a thing he does.
Bought himself a bit of extra
yeah,
time.
see, I'm going to knock 20 seconds off this clock here. So he's down to a minute 5. So looking back over what we've just seen, Nakobe Dean, Trent McDuffie, Zion Johnson, how many of these players in, let's say, our last 5 picks, George Karlaftis and Jordan Davis, how many of those 5 do we think are definitely going in the first round?
3.
You want to name them?
Davis, Zion Johnson, and McDuffie.
You don't think Nakobe Dean goes in the first round?
Oh, I think he could.
See, I was going to say 4.
Out of those 5, I think Dean and Kalafdis are the most likely to drop out of the first round.
Yeah, some people have McDuffie going before Booth Jr.
Yeah.
So I think,
I think the need at cornerback is greater as well, and I think finding good cornerbacks.
problem all round the league.
Yeah.
Well, the thing now that the wide receiver market is being reset, you've got to find cornerbacks who can defend against them. But this is the issue we're going to have all evening is there's probably 12 players here that in reality could slip into the second round or below. With the number 27 pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the Snap UK draft select Boye Marte. Tell me I'm pronouncing it wrong.
Marfay.
Marfay.
Oh, there you go. I'm pronouncing it wrong. This is our yearly thing where we find out Mike doesn't know how to pronounce any of the NFL names. Defensive line. The Bucs defense has been great. Is this an attempt at replacing Sue?
Yeah, effectively. It's to go along with Vita Vea.
Yeah, and this is the thing. Like,
Say his full name, you coward.
Mr. Vita Vea.
Thank you.
let's be honest. They've still retained most of their weapons on offense, so defense is a sensible place to start, right?
Considering where they were 2 months ago when you're like, oh, no, they need a quarterback, and then you're like, oh, well, will the other players stay? Suddenly, it's not that case anymore. So why not just beef the line, make it,
It's a dominating force.
Yeah.
This guy slides straight in. I don't have a problem with this selection at all, considering who's left. It's interesting to note that they haven't confirmed Gronk's return yet. Somebody pointing out that he just doesn't want to do any of the preseason.
Well,
Too busy partying.
Jim is on the clock.
So, is that you done? Was that your final selection? Or you can have a rest now and sit back as we watch
It's me
Jim.
for the Packers.
We going through here with the Packers.
See if you can find anything to keep Aaron Rodgers happy.
The best bit about this is it's not just Jim with the Packers, but the following selection is Jim with the Texans.
I know. Utter dross.
So you think about it, when have the Packers ever drafted to make Aaron Rodgers happy? That's not what they do.
No, it doesn't seem to be. They lit a fire under him with Jordan Love, I seem to remember. That's not what he wanted. With the 28th selection in the draft out of North Dakota State, it's Christian Watson, wide receiver, talking about making Aaron Rodgers happy. Now, that's our 6th wide receiver off the board. That would be a lot. I mean, it is a strong position. As position groups go, it's probably the strongest one in the draft.
This is my draft crush. I watched lots of video on him today. He's brilliant. He's like a big, tall Deebo Samuel.
A big, tall Deebo Samuel
Yeah.
is your crush.
Yeah.
Excellent stuff.
You actually look slightly worryingly excited.
He looks like a proud parent, doesn't he?
He's gone red in the face.
You have. What were you doing with these videos?
Really fun to watch.
Okay.
Sounds it.
And would add immediate impact, you think, to
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
struggling Packers receiving corps?
I think you look at the offense that Matt LaFleur runs. It is similar to what Shanahan tries to do or does in San Francisco. So then they get a receiver who can both run the ball after the catch, but also high point it and 50-50 calls. I think he's perfect for the Packers.
Great shout. Can't fault that at all.
Jim is back on the clock.
Jim
Now he's
is
left.
on the clock.
Well, as we said earlier, you can't go far wrong with the Texans, a bit like the Lions. They need everything. So you're looking around and thinking, who are the best players left on the board that we've heard nothing about? We haven't seen, Kyler Gordon go yet. The second best safety, Daxton Hill's still there. They just need so much. I don't think any of the remaining wide receivers are likely to improve them. Bearing in mind they've got
there's
Brandon
one.
Cooks.
Jahan Dotson.
Is he a first round wide receiver? I suppose if you're claiming Christian Watson is, then I suppose it's possible. We haven't seen running back yet. What have they got at running back on that Texans roster?
I'm not taking a running back.
They've got loads of dross.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I'm only thinking you've got to help the quarterback. The second-year quarterback is going to need a running game. So Kenneth Walker and Breece Hill would be an upgrade. For me on what they've got. Obviously, Jim's not having it, but for me, they are the first team in reality that may take a running back because they've got to make an impact. You can't have it all on Davis Mills and Brandon Cooks. Can't do. And, Jim drafted for the O-line earlier with Evan Neal, so you could really make an impact with a rookie low lineman and a rookie running back. Anyway, he's scribbling furiously. This is what we like to see. Several of our... the final 3 picks are Gary, Paul, Gary, and both of them are furiously cycling through their phones, hoping to find a steal in the draft. Right. With the 29th selection, the Texans select Lewis Scene. Every time. Safety. I did say we could get another safety off the board here. Straight out of Georgia. Building for the defense because they have nothing.
Yeah, basically.
Didn't they lose Justin Reed?
Yeah, they lost Justin Reed in free agency. It could have gone Daxton Hill or Lewis Scene here. Lewis Scene's, for me, he's kind of jumping up those draft boards quite a lot recently. Quite versatile.
Is he a Lovie Smith guy?
Yeah, I think so. It's a really big hard hitter. He plays really with a lot of physicality. Again, he plays on that Georgia team, and we were saying on the way here, there's probably about 6 or 7 Georgia defenders that could go in the first round. He's definitely one of them. He's a winner, and I think the Texans need that mentality.
They certainly do.
I'm done now, by the way.
Gary is on the clock.
But you know who's not done? It's Gary, who's still got 2 selections left. So the Chiefs, he's quick off the board with the 30th overall selection. It is that other safety, Daxton Hill, joining the Chiefs. Give me a reason.
Well, I think they like a very attacking, hit and run kind of defense, don't they? The Chiefs,
Yeah,
quite an explosive defense. You think of players like Sorensen, the way Matthews gone.
Sorensen, who by the way needs replacing because he had about 6 good games last year.
Matthews gone as well.
Yeah.
So when you look at those kind of dynamic playmakers in the backfield for the Chiefs, it's just not there. So we've added for the offense to replace Tyreek Hill, and it feels like to keep them where they were, which is all the Chiefs need to do, is keep their franchise replacing with youth and talent from what they lose for cost. For me, it's the perfect pick. I was just waiting to see if Jim was going to take him in this.
Well, Tyrann Mathieu hasn't signed anywhere else yet, has he?
No, he hasn't.
Because he wants to go back to the Chiefs.
Well,
but it's whether or not they want to pay him.
He's going to have to take a bit of a pay cut. Interesting, I was looking
They did sign a replacement, didn't they?
Yeah, they signed Justin Reed.
And then,
they signed
Matthew came out and said, I'd have just taken that deal if they'd offered it to me.
Perhaps they're just done with him. Perhaps they think he's too old.
It seems that way.
Did see an interesting player pro comparison for Daxton Hill, which is Eric Berry, obviously the famous Chiefs.
Jesus,
safety as well.
that's some hype to live up to.
Yep.
4th Inches is on the clock.
The clock is ticking, Paul. The Bengals, when was the last time we saw the Bengals pick at 31 based on merit in the first round? Ever? Anyone?
Well, they have at some point in life, surely.
They went
to Super Bowls
They went to
before.
1 Super Bowl before, but I don't know.
yeah, they've
Been to 2.
yeah.
We've lost to the 49ers twice.
Oh, okay. But back in those days, there weren't 32 teams.
Good point.
So this is where I was going with that.
Well, if there's less than that, then they probably have picked a 31.
Well, we shall see. Not in the first round. But again, the Bengals. Now, let's be honest. If you took the Bengals team that they already have on paper, a bit like we said with the Bills, it's virtually the same team. Like,
I think you got a cornerback here.
yeah, but
They
what
got
have
to
you
the
got?
Super Bowl with terrible cornerbacks.
They did go to the Super Bowl with terrible
up
cornerbacks.
half
But in
decent.
our draft, what's left in the first round worth taking?
Yeah, Elam.
So I'd like to introduce you all to my reach. I have to give you one reach every year, and this is my reach.
Jelani Woods out of Virginia for the Bengals at 31. Talk to me.
This is a tight end. I feel they have a need at tight
They
end.
do have a need at tight end.
They brought in Hayden Hurst from Atlanta, who was at Baltimore before, who's really kind of...
Underperformed.
Yeah. The other people that they have there, you've got Thaddeus Moss, so that's Randy Moss's son.
Yes.
And you've also got Drew Sample. So that's a pretty poor
He's
tight
a
end.
blocking
room.
tight end, yeah. So... yes! John and Paul celebrating there as we're looking at our draft rankings. Jelani Woods, a discrepancy in overall recommended ranking of 98 positions.
I forgot to mention with Daxton Hill that his brother is Justice Hill, the NFL running back, and his friend is Faith Hill.
Well, I'm glad you've trampled all over this massive selection.
Do they know Taysom Hill as well?
I think
Damon Hill.
Jelani
Jimmy Hill.
Jelani Woods is a freak of an athlete. He's 6'7". He can block. He can catch. He's imposing. He did a 4.6 40. I think it was 24 reps in the combine. So this is a guy who massively impressed in the combine, and the Bengals have the opportunity to kind of take a punt. This is the punt. For me.
This is true. I like this selection. They do need a tight end, and Burrow, was he coming into his third season? One season of which he missed almost the entirety of, so 2 and a bit seasons. Everybody loves a tight end to throw to. I don't hate the pick, but I'm disappointed it wasn't Chigozie Okonkwo, who's going to struggle. That's my favourite name up there still.
I reckon that if this isn't offensive line, they riot on the streets of Cincinnati because
He did a lot in the free agency with offensive line.
I still think they need more people. Like, he got hit
A lot.
a lot just against the Raiders.
Yeah. Was it 14?
Something ridiculous.
Didn't he get 9 times against the Titans?
9 times.
Sacked 9 times.
Sacked 9 times.
Yeah.
Like, it's. I think.
I see what you're
Lale
saying.
Collins, I think, or whatever. I still think they need maybe 1 or 2 more.
Well, you could replace the whole O-line on that team. But I like what you're doing. And if Jelani Woods can block in the NFL, then that's some sort of contribution.
He's a massive 6'7" guy, so I'm sure he can block.
As opposed to one of them really tiny 6'7" guys. Right. With the final selection,
Gary is on the clock.
just because I wanted you to press your well-worked buttons one last time. It's Gary with the Lions. It's back almost where we started, as they picked at number 2 as well. Out of Pittsburgh, quarterback, Kenny Pickett.
Yes, he can.
I think this is a good shout. Gary, second quarterback off the board. Happy that he can sit behind Jared Goff for a year and learn?
Unhappy that I've had to pick him, actually. So, like, I was going to take Arnold Ebikatete or something, something along those lines, and take 2 edge rushers, which I think would have transformed the Lions as a
why didn't
defense. Because I think that the opportunity to get a young quarterback at 32,
Fifth year option.
he could be there at 34. Don't
Yeah,
get me wrong.
yeah.
But then so could very well be the edge rusher, you know.
Chris
So
makes a good point, though. The first round, he gets the 5th year option.
Fifth year option.
I think
Important.
you take him, don't you, at 32, and
I like it. I think if you're purely playing the sensible game,
Yeah.
this is a very likely pick.
this is, unlike my other planned picks where I had a couple of options for every pick through the draft, this one was not on my list, but he was there. So what do you do when you've got a first round talent in Kenny Pickett?
Yes, he can.
He is first round talent, I think. Is he top 10 talent? No, but is he first round talent? Yes. Why not take him when you know you're going to be picking at, like, say, 34 anyway? You're going to get your pick of whatever else you want for any other positions anyway, aren't you? So
This is Kyle Trask from the year before, isn't it? You're just taking a quarterback there as an option.
Yeah, a little bit. I think he's a bit more than Kyle Trask, but yeah, like I say, for me,
do we think only 2 quarterbacks are seriously going to go in the first
I think
round?
it's possible. I really think it's
We don't
possible.
think Ridder will go as well. No.
I've seen so much talk about Ridder going to Pittsburgh.
There's drafts that have got no quarterbacks in the first round, and there's drafts that have got 4. So
I think the line is 2.5, the better line.
So two seems entirely plausible to me. None of them are outstanding prospects. We said last year they could have sat all of those quarterbacks except maybe Trevor Lawrence, who was always going to start, and they'd all have benefited. This year is even more so. You'd be struggling to start any of the top 6 quarterbacks. In fact, you'd be foolish to start them. So
But it doesn't cost you much, does it, to put Kenny Pickett behind Goff and
no,
see how it works
and
out.
a bit like I said with Tannehill, I think Goff's potentially a good tutor. He's seen a lot.
And next summer, you can have a proper battle, can't you?
Yeah.
Right, Goff. It might push Goff on to be as good as he can be.
Right.
So
I like it. We're going to round this up with a quick recap. I'd like everybody's favourite pick. John, your favourite pick of the teams that you were GMing for. Who were you most happy that you selected? Good noise. Good noise.
Very nice.
It's because I've dumped it on him.
There's no one.
There's no one. He's answered.
No.
There's no one.
Stingley for the Giants.
So for your team, you'd be happy with that acquisition, would you?
I would love that.
Excellent. Jim?
Well, firstly, I'd like to congratulate Paul on the 49ers pick of Sauce Gardner. I thought that was a great pick. Christian Watson to the Packers.
Because he's your love child.
My love child.
Gary?
As much as I don't like the Patriots, I think Devin Lloyd is a really good fit. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens in real life.
Head ruling heart there. Head ruling heart. That's what that is. Like it. You've matured. You're becoming a real boy.
Next time, if I get the Patriots, I'm just going to ask Paul to do the pick for me.
Speaking of which, Paul, who are you happiest with?
You know it's.
Jelani Woods.
No, I'm not going to
it's
say
not.
Jelani Woods. If the Jets came out of that draft with Kyle Hamilton and Trayvon Walker,
Transforms.
That would be amazing, and all of a sudden they're catching the Patriots for being the third best team in the AFC East. Yeah, I mean, I am actually really pleased with the way it went. I don't think there was any really stupid picks
oh come on,
until
give me one.
until Jelani Woods. And you know, we've seen bigger reaches before, Will Greer. Look, I like the way this has worked out. I feel it's, you know, there's definitely wide receiver for me. We've been a little bit heavy on. I think I can't see 6 going in the first round, but it is a really deep position group. And if people don't know who to take, we've seen the impact that Jefferson, Jamar Chase, what these players can suddenly do with a team. So
I think there's enough still good edge rushers and O-linemen where you might see a couple of those wide receivers just drop into the second round.
I think someone could take a punt on David Ojabo. I know he got injured during the draft process and he could be out for most of this year, but his talent before that injury, he predicted as a top 10. So I think someone like the Bucks, maybe where it's not as big a need, could take a punt on him.
That's like a Jeffrey Simmons type one,
absolutely,
isn't it?
quick question then, before we round this out. There's a lot of teams that will want to trade back for more picks. Is this going to be a really difficult year to trade back with the lack of star instant impact talent?
I think, you know, some of the trades we've seen, like the Chiefs trade, I think that's a good way where you might see some trades move forward. So the two teams, I think you got the Steelers could try and trade up if they do want a quarterback.
Sure.
If they've picked a quarterback they want, then you could see them move forward. And I think it's just going to be those teams. You know, if the Chiefs decide they want one of the top 2 or 3 wide receivers, they will move forward to do that, and they've got a good position to do it. So the Saints, again, if they really want somebody, they've got the draft capital to move up. So I think 2 or 3 teams rather than lots of moving
But
around.
do teams need to move up for quarterbacks? Are they not going to be
I
there?
don't think anyone will move up for a quarterback. I think it's moving up for those top 2 or 3 receivers. I think between the top 3, there's probably then a gap to the next 4.
Teams have seen the impact wide receivers
so I
make
think
now.
like Chiefs, Saints, perhaps Eagles, perhaps Packers could all make a move to try and jump ahead of each other. And
Packers should move up and
Yeah.
take a great wide receiver. That's what they should
Oi.
do.
What's wrong with Christian Watson?
Bad choice.
Everyone confident that just as reflected in our draft, there will be no running back taken in the first round? It's not a rarity. It does happen. But
But like I say, I think I nearly took one for the Bills. I think if anyone's going to take one, that would be them.
Oh, absolutely. You saw last year with Najee Harris and Travis Etienne, they were going to be taken by any. They were clearly first-round talent. They were described as first-round
Yes.
talent the entire process.
Yeah.
Brees Hall is the only one who I've seen.
Brees Hall's the
described.
only definite nailed on first round talent. I think he's really good. I think towards the end of the draft, like I say, for me, the Bills, maybe the Texans are going to need a running back. These
Over
teams
the
can
last
do it.
4 or 5 years, or so, there's only 2 running backs that have got second
Contracts, yeah.
Zeke and McCaffrey.
Yeah, with the same
both are
team.
now not as good as they were, and are now being paid loads of money and ruining their franchises.
Yeah.
So like teams are just not taking, and the number of running backs is going down each year.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
going from like 6 to 4 to 2.
But you're seeing teams like the Niners who have got this plug and play system rather than just the star running back of old.
You can pick them. We've said it so many times. You could pick them in the 3rd, 4th round.
James
Connors,
Connors.
Kamara, Elijah Mitchell last year from the 49ers.
Yeah.
And that Hall of Famer, Terrell Davis, going, who's undrafted.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tampa may be able to have a flyer
Yeah.
because they've lost Rojo. They've got a bloke who only turns up for the playoffs, and no real needs. So why not? If any team wanted to, Bills, Bucks, but you're relying on teams that are basically sort of there.
Ravens could move
Yeah.
back and take a running back at the end of the first round.
Yeah.
Well, they do get a
got
lot
one
of their
at
running back. Yeah, and they get
Yeah,
all
but
their
that didn't
running
work
backs.
last year, did it?
No, but they get all their running backs back off of.
All the ones that have got fucked knees now.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
They've got Gus and J.K. Dobbins, haven't they?
Yeah, so J.K. Dobbins is going to be a force.
Tell you what, I've got a question. After we broke last week from the podcast, you told us you had a 3-way.
Oh,
Where's
yeah,
this
a
going?
three-way, yeah.
I left a pause in there on purpose. A 3-way trade that you think we should have done.
Yeah, and you're going to ask me what it was, and I can't remember off the top of my head. It was to do with the Lions moving back from 2 and then having loads of capital later on in the draft and ending up with Jimmy G on their roster. But I can't remember who the third team was that was involved. It basically was going to give the Niners some capital to move around and free up the Niners' salary cap problem. But I can't remember what the third team was that was involved. So to be honest with you, that's a bit of a blank slate for me.
Sorry, I didn't.
No, that's all right.
Spring that on
I
you.
can't remember. It'll come to me.
under the bus.
I'll end up texting you at 4 a.m. saying, "No, it was this."
I was just interested because last week you were like, "Oh,
It
I'm not
was-
going to mention it because I want to see if you come up with it on your own." So I thought, now we haven't. I thought I'd ask and see
Yeah,
what it was.
I can't remember.
I went for a walk with him last night and asked him. He couldn't.
No, I couldn't remember. John asked me. No, I don't recall it. It's just something that came to me, and I thought, oh yeah, they could do that. It would help the Niners, help the Lions, and I can't think what the third team was. But it was a bit like when the Browns offloaded Brock Osweiler and had to pay, basically get rid of him. It feels a bit like that for the 49ers. If you're going to want to keep Debo, Jimmy G's got to go, because where else are you getting this money from that he's going to want? And you can't tell me the wide receiver market isn't paying them, because it is. So as much as Jimmy G is not in anywhere near the Brock Osweiler league, it feels a bit like you're going to be.
Jimmy
it's
will
going to
go.
cost you to lose
We'll
him.
pay Debo.
It depends how it's structured as well, though, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
Debo's still got a year left on his contract, so they could just have a contract extension, but only really, and it's what Mahomes did for the Chiefs. Only have the big money kick in after the rookie contract's finished.
And if he sits out, he doesn't.
He loses a year of
his
it.
year. He has to stay
yeah,
another
yeah,
year.
exactly.
So, like, he doesn't have all the power.
No, he doesn't. It's just that you don't have any money.
No, we've got enough.
About 20 million.
You remember the Chiefs at one point had like $8.40 left in cap.
I do. Right. Well, that draws the 2022 edition of the Snap UK podcast NFL Draft to a rather crashing close. It'll be interesting to see come Thursday night how many of these players, let alone how close we are, but how many of these players actually go in the first round and who we've missed, because we usually miss one player at least.
No, it's all right. I took him at 31.
Jelani Woods is your bet, nailed on for the first round, yeah? Has anyone got anything else to add before we close the podcast for the night? I'm going to take that. Massive silence as a no. I know Gary and I are desperate to go to bed together. And everybody
Mattress
else.
isn't here
Oh, Christ, I'm looking forward to rolling on that. Right. Before we go, I'd like to thank Gary for hosting the boxing at the weekend and barbecuing at 11 o'clock at night in the freezing cold.
No worries.
Emmental cheese melted onto burgers at 11 o'clock at night is what you need, apparently.
Not the next day. It was.
Well, with that in mind, thank you and good night.